Getting into the world of saltwater reef tanks is absolutely mesmerizing, but there are a few hidden challenges that can catch you off guard. One of the biggest lessons I learned is this hobby isn't cheap, and I shouldn't go cheap on equipment. As mesmerizing as it is to have a slice of the ocean in your living room, there are a few things I wish someone had told me before I took the plunge. In this video, I'll share with you the top things I wish I knew before diving into the world of saltwater reef tanks. Number 1, knowledge is power. In the saltwater reef world, knowledge is your best friend. It's what turns the daunting task of reef keeping into a rewarding journey. By taking the time to learn from books, forums, and subscribing to this channel, seriously, less than 10% of my viewers are actually subscribers. Come on, seriously. And you're gonna avoid some common pitfalls and set yourself up for success before you even add your first drop of water. Building a reef tank is a marathon, not a sprint. Slow and steady wins this race, and it keeps your fish from going belly up. Getting impatient and adding too much livestock at once, not doing your research, or impulse buys are great ways to sink your chances in the hobby. Whether it's your partner, kids, or nosy neighbor, getting others involved can turn any reefing into a family affair. The most successful reefers I know either got their significant other involved or they each knew how to respect the work needed in the hobby. It's also going to be really nice to have some tank sitters if you get busy or go out of town. Just make sure they know the difference between a coral and a rock. When it comes to tank size matters. More water means more stability, which means happier fish and gayer corals. This is an even bigger deal when it comes to saltwater tanks. Anything under 40 gallons is going to be tough for a beginner. If you can budget it, go bigger. Reefing is not just a hobby, it's an investment. On average, you're going to need to spend 3 times more on a saltwater setup than you would in a freshwater one. The maintenance cost will go up as well. But hey, who needs a vacation when you can escape to your living room reef paradise, right? First, it's a fish, then a coral. Next thing you know, you're dreaming of upgrading your tank to one that could become tank of the month. Then you start purchasing those designer stick. That's what I call them. Welcome to the club. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither will your reef tank. Taking your time allows you to carefully plan and avoid costly mistakes that could set you back. So enjoy the process and let your reef tank evolve at its own pace. Behind every tank of the month and showcase display tank is a whole lot of work, research, and care put in to make it stand out. Keeping RODI, aka reverse osmosis deionized water, on hand is akin to stocking your fridge with organic superfoods. It ensures that your reef stays in peak condition, free from harmful impurities. So, skip the tap water and treat your tank to the 5-star service it deserves. Every saltwater tank should use RODI water, even fish-only tanks. Skipping a week of tank maintenance feels harmless at first, but sooner or later the consequences just catch up to you. Mistakes and laziness in the saltwater aquarium will cost you dearly, way more than freshwater tanks. Do not skip out. Are you hear me? You hear me? Do not skip out. A refugium is an absolute must-have for your tank, doing everything from filtering out the bad stuff to helping your micro critters thrive. It's a total game changer for maintaining a balanced ecosystem and for providing a steady source of live organisms for your fish to feed on. This hobby is all about knowledge and research. If you're questioning whether you should add that fish or tweak that parameter, pause. It's better to be safe than find Nemo floating upside down. Just like juggling too many tasks at work, having too many tanks can lead to burnout both for you and your fish. Focus on one masterpiece before branching out. Multiple tank syndrome is a real thing in this hobby. Avoid it, especially when it comes to saltwater tanks. One is plenty, believe me. Moving a tank is a total nightmare. The stress is so real when you've got to relocate all that water and those delicate, pricey decorations. Seriously, plan ahead and get ready for a major hassle. I've done it 2 times and both times stressed me the heck out. Aquarium clubs are a total vibe. Joining one connects you with a squad of fellow reefing enthusiasts who have all the tips and tricks that you might need. Whether you're swapping fish stories or you're just getting advice, being part of a club is a major win for anyone serious about leveling up their tank game. I've got a great listing on my website that lists out all the hobbyist clubs and societies by state. I'll leave it in the link for the card above. Forums can be a mixed bag of advice. Some tips are solid, others are sketchy, and some are just plain off. Be smart and don't take everything at face value. Take everything with a grain of sea salt. If you ask me, I think the best forum in the hobby is Humblefish. It isn't loaded with sponsors, and he's one of the OG reefers. I'd personally avoid Reddit. Okay, seriously, like Google and Reddit, get it together. Heading to your local fish store without a plan? Big mistake. You'll likely walk out with way more than you bargained for in a tank that's way too crowded. Make a list and stick to it, so you don't end up with impulse buys that throw your tank out of balance. The local fish store employee might be very friendly, but remember, they're also trying to make a sale. Do your homework before shelling out that must-have gadget or fish. I've worked at LFSs in the past, and I've seen some of the worst things. Bargain hunting is great, but not when it comes to reef gear. Cheap equipment can lead to costly disasters, so invest in quality and sleep easy. Cheap heaters explode. Chinese equipment fails easily. Poorly made skimmers don't skim. If you ask me, the top quality manufacturers are Sicce and Tuns. Seriously, everything they make I am sold on. However, other brands will depend, so do your research thoroughly and don't be afraid of leaving a comment and asking me what I think. I don't take any sponsors, and I can say what I want about any brand I please. Go for a drilled tank or DIY it. It's crucial for setting up a sump. Just make sure you drill it right, or you could end up with a mini flood in your living room. If you don't want to drill your tank, purchase a reef-ready tank. The height of your tank stand isn't just about aesthetics, it's about practicality. So get the right height to save your back and avoid eye strain. 30 inches is a great height for most. It provides better viewing and won't kill your back to work on. The sump is the MVP of filtration. The bigger, the better. More room for stability, better filtration, and space for all those gadgets you're gonna want to add. Tap water in your reef tank? Not a good idea. It's like putting regular gas in a sports car. It might work, but it won't be great. Stick to RODI Water for the best results. It's gonna keep you from nuisance like algae or cyanobacteria. Reef tanks attract Murphy's Law, so always have backup equipment on hand. When something breaks at midnight, you're gonna be glad you planned ahead. The key components I'd have spares of would be heaters, return pumps, and wave makers. A power outage can spell disaster for your reef. Having a backup power source is like insurance for your tank, essential for keeping things safe. I've got a whole video about surviving a power outage, and I'll leave it in the card above so you can check it out. LEDs are super powerful and can easily overwhelm your corals. Start with low settings and then increase it gradually to avoid frying your coral friends. LED spectrums can be a headache to figure out. Stick to tried and true settings or consult a buddy at a reef club to dial it in. Your corals will reward you with some amazing colors. An aquarium controller is like having a personal assistant for your tank. It handles all the tedious tasks so you can chill and enjoy the view. Automation for the win. Cycling your tank with some shrimp is an easy and safe way to get your tank ready for the fish. The shrimp does the work and your tank is good to go. You can also opt for a fishless cycle using just ammonia that is safe to use for cycling an aquarium. Dr. Tim's brand is a great one to use. Adding livestock is like throwing a party. More guests means more cleanup, so go slow and keep your tank's balance in check and avoid a bacterial overload. If you respect this rule, it'll save you a lot of trouble. Your hands can bring unwanted chemicals into your tank, so give them a good rinse before diving in. It's a quick way to keep your tank safe and happy. Soap that's safe to use like Reef Suds is great to ensure that you keep unwanted impurities out of your tank. Constantly tweaking your tank's parameters can cause more harm than good. Aim for stability, not perfection. Your tank will thrive with less fussing, and your main goal is to keep your parameters to your salt mix so you don't throw anything off when you make a water change. Not all test kits are reliable. Some are as inaccurate as a bad weather forecast. Invest in quality kits to keep your tank's health in check. For saltwater tanks, I'm a big fan of Hanna checkers. When dosing your tank, patience is key. Add supplements slowly and see how your tank responds before making more adjustments. Coralline algae will appear when your tank is ready. There's no need to rush it. Relax and let it happen naturally as your tank matures. There's no need to purchase Purple Up supplements here, no. If you have a coralline in the tank from live rock, it'll eventually start to grow as your tank stabilizes. Dry rock is an awesome starting point for your tank. It's pest-free and full of potential, letting you watch as life gradually takes hold and turns into a thriving ecosystem. It's great to make sure your tank is pest-free. However, be careful of keeping your tank too sterile and clean, as this will invite the dreaded dinos, which are difficult to get rid of. Aquascaping is the art of arranging rocks and corals like a Zen garden, only wetter. It's how you turn your tank into a work of art, so channel your inner artiste. All those tank of the months you see were planned ahead of time and aquascaped ahead of time. Epoxy is your best friend when it comes to keeping rocks in place and preventing critters from redecorating. Just make sure you apply it correctly to avoid a sticky mess. It's more common to see rocks epoxied to tank surfaces in bare bottom setups. Buying secondhand fish and corals can be a hit or a miss. Sometimes you find a gem, but other times you get more than you bargained for. Quarantine is a must to keep your tank safe. In my experience, it's been more trouble than it's worth. Choosing fish isn't just about picking the prettiest one, it's all about compatibility, diet, and tank size. Make sure your new addition fits in perfectly with your setup, and know what signs to look out for so you can observe these signs of stress. Always make sure you see the fish eat before you buy. Quarantining new fish is essential. It's like giving them a health check before they join the party. It's a bit of extra work, but it's worth it to prevent any tank-wide issues. It may not seem like a big deal if you come from the freshwater side, but in the saltwater hobby, diseases are far more deadlier and will oftentimes wipe out entire tanks. Diseases are also more common. If you want to skip out on quarantining, I'd recommend that you purchase from a high-quality vendor like TSM Corals, who do the quarantining for you. Don't let one sick fish turn into one sick tank. Some fish need special care, diets, and tank conditions. If your setup isn't ready to handle them, it's better to pass. Don't bring home a high-maintenance fish if your tank isn't up for it. Don't purchase fish that will outgrow your tank either. Oh, I see ya. That flashy fish might catch your eye, but if it's not suited for your tank, it's more trouble than it's worth. You'll see a lot of fish like this at the local fish store. Large angelfish, sensitive fish like Moorish idols, and aggressive fish like clown triggers are often seen as cool fish that new hobbyists go to buy. Make sure it's a good match for your system before you make that purchase. Damsels and large clownfish may look cute, but they can turn into bullies at your tank. They've been known to cause chaos, so think twice before adding them to your community. They're called blue devils for a reason. The Tang police are strict for a reason. Tangs need plenty of space to swim. Follow their advice to avoid overcrowding and keep your tank drama-free. Respect the Tang police, and they will respect you. Overfeeding your fish can lead to a mess of problems, from dirty water to unhealthy fish. Feed them just enough to keep them healthy and avoid turning your tank into an all-you-can-eat buffet. Adding too many fish at once can throw your tank's balance out of whack. Take it slow, introduce new fish gradually to keep your peace and maintain a healthy environment. It's also important to note that nearly all saltwater fish would be considered territorial and semi-aggressive when compared to freshwater fish. Every time you add a fish, territory needs to be claimed. Keep this in mind when you're buying. Hand feeding your fish might seem cute, but once they get used to it, they'll keep begging like a pack of hungry strays. Stick to feeding tools to keep things orderly and avoid creating little beggars. This is particularly important if you have large, aggressive fish like triggers and eels. I once knew a guy at my local fish store who had part of his index finger bitten off because of a queen trigger. Use feeding sticks if you want the experience, because your fish can injure you. When a fish gets sick, it's time to step up as your tank's marine medic. Quick and decisive action is crucial because in the reef world, every minute counts. I don't mess around with diseases. I use hard medications like copper. No herbal remedies will work with saltwater fish, so don't even attempt it. The LFS might recommend a massive cleanup crew, but you don't need an army for a small space. Sellers will often sell you more than you need, and you can expect a good chunk of your crew to die off. Just get the essentials. Your tank and your wallet will thank you. Dipping corals before adding them to your tank is a must to avoid unwanted pests and diseases. Think of it as giving them a quick rinse to keep your tank safe and clean. There are some unconventional dips like Bayer that work well, but it's difficult to get it now in some states. I'd recommend looking up on Reef Forums if you can obtain it in your state. Coral frags are the perfect starter plants for your reef. They're small, affordable, and they have the potential to grow into something amazing. Start with frags and watch your tank flourish. That neon coral might catch your eye, but if it's hard to care for, it's more hassle than it's worth. Stick to corals that suit your skill level. Less stress, more success. Some corals can spread like wildfire and take over your tank if you're not careful. A good example of this are xenias and green star polyps. Do your research before buying to avoid an unintentional coral invasion. Carpet anemones might look appealing, but they can be a menace in your tank, sucking up anything that gets too close, including your favorite fish. Handle them with care. If you're looking for anemones, I would suggest bubble tip anemones instead. When fragging corals, safety first. Without proper protection, you could end up hurt. Make sure you gear up with gloves and goggles to stay safe while you work. So there you have it. Some of the things that you need to know to keep your saltwater tank thriving. Remember, the key to a successful reef tank is in all the details. So take your time, stay informed, and enjoy the journey. For more tips and tricks on reef tank care, be sure to check out my blog post, or better yet, check out the next video to your right.